Hello again there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video. Apologies for the voice. The cold is hitting me in full force, but really wanted to get this video out because today I'm going to be commenting on the most recent Insurgency Sandstorm update. It's listed as patch 1.4.1, as well as shed some light on where I feel the game is headed over the course of the next couple of months leading into console release. Let's start with what this 1.4.1 patch does, because even though it's not the largest in terms of bug fixes and updates, it does actually fix one of the most annoying bugs in the game, that being the impenetrable window glitch, where neither grenades nor players could get through. That bug, however, even though it's listed as a critical fix, isn't the highlight of this update, as you'll hear from a lot of players over the next couple of days, I'm sure. The game mode Skirmish has been removed from official matchmaking, essentially killing the game mode entirely, because I think you can still get it on community servers, but nobody really plays those, so for all intents and purposes, it's dead. The patch does also include a change in player count for casual firefight, switching from 8v8 back to 12v12, as well as a quote-unquote perpetual double XP boost for both the casual and competitive firefight modes. Push and Frontline have been merged into a single playlist called Ground Battle, and there are a short list of cosmetic changes and fixes to animations and character models, but if you're here and want to know those particular changes, I'll just link it in the description below, because I'm not going to recite verbatim the entirety of that stuff. What I do want to do, however, is give a small kind of I told you so to all the people who were in my stream the other week when I said that Skirmish probably isn't going to last in Sandstorm. Matter of fact, there was a time where I wanted to make a video going over how I felt Skirmish needed to be changed in order to retain and attract more players. But thankfully, I never spent that time, and seeing as NWI saw the same low player count that I did and chose to just remove it completely, I don't know. It doesn't really confirm point blank my theory as far as why Sandstorm fails to grow its player base and viewer count, but it definitely follows along the same train of thought. When you compare the way that Skirmish in Insurgency Source was viewed and played, and the way that it kind of acted as a gateway mode between push and firefight, the biggest aspect that Sandstorm changed was the size of the map mixed with the pacing of movement. So back in Source, Skirmish had the exact same objective layouts as its firefight counterparts. The only difference was the addition of 2 destructible caches, which were really important because it removed the ability of one team to gain additional respawn waves. When Sandstorm first launched, however, Skirmish maps were very, very large in comparison to the firefight maps. And the reason for that increase in size was honestly the design around the map build around vehicular transport rather than, vehicular combat. So this is going to be a little bit of personal bias mixed in with this observation, but I personally have never enjoyed vehicle and infantry combat, and I really, even to this day, have a hard time viewing vehicles in Sandstorm as a viable method of playing the game, because the strong point of the Insurgency franchise has always been the man-on-man gun engagements, the team coordination, the class system, and then obviously the sounds and visuals that bring you into the conflict. That part, which other franchises have done okay in the past, is really enhanced by Insurgency's close quarter engagements rather than long range. That grimy get on the point or lose everything mentality, where you're trying to simultaneously avoid suppressing fire from the enemies as well as from your friendlies, no other title really does that. And this 180-degree flop in popularity that we see for Skirmish when you compare Sandstorm versus Source, it's very, very apparent, and honestly backed up by the large number of Skirmish veterans from Source who now only play Firefight in Sandstorm, because the Skirmish maps are just too large in Sandstorm. There was too much time between spawning and getting into gun engagements. Ministry kind of alleviated that issue, but now that Skirmish is gone, it's hard for me to really justify going into depth and detail explaining how and what could have been changed about Skirmish to make it actually viable in Sandstorm. From here on out, if you really want to play Skirmish, you can revisit it in Insurgency Source and play it on the TBG and AKH servers, if those are even still around. In some ways, the removal of Skirmish is a really good indicator of NWI's clearer focus as far as the direction they want the game to go. My biggest criticism in regards to their surveys this year has been the pleading manner in which they kind of like ask for a direction of the game. Like, in other words, like how the players want the game developed, which shouldn't really be needed when you're talking about such a small development studio. I understand that they need to get feedback in terms of which content have a higher priority and which bugs and exploits are more prominent amongst players than others, but asking the people who are already daily grinding your game and try-harding what you should do to necessarily like grow the game isn't really gonna do anything, because even if it retains those players who filled out the surveys, it's not going to bring in new players. It's always strange to see that a bunch of different types of players, from like casual to co-op, milsim, and competitive, found their way to Insurgency over the course of the different years for, different aspects. And honestly, it's very telling about how good the game is and how satisfying the combat is. If this path, though, as far as this removal of skirmish and this focus on like being very business savvy and focusing on which game modes are being populated, if it's any indication, it probably means that competitive matchmaking is going to get the KO next, which doesn't really, I don't know, this hurts me to say, but the truly competitive players don't even use the competitive matchmaking. They only use the private servers and the pug system. And so honestly, I still think that casual firefight offers something for a certain casual player base, but I can definitely see an in-game as far as for Sandstorm, where they launched to console with checkpoint, push, frontline, and casual firefight as the main game modes, and maybe even instead of focusing on the competitive side, maybe focus on doing crossplay and or having better checkpoint experiences. I don't know. We'll see how future updates pan out for the game, but with this kind of change, with the removal of skirmish and kind of this more focused mentality for an NWI on making sure that we're focusing on limiting the spread of player count across different game modes, I think it'll actually help the game in that sense, because at least it's going in a stable direction. But I just don't know what that's going to mean for the Sandstorm's population in the long term, at least on PC. Because personally, I'll probably still hop on Sandstorm and shoot some shit here and there and again, but the moment that Modern Warfare releases, I'm going to be full-timing that game, both like casually and competitively. So until the next drop happens for either game, though, make sure you guys are following me on Twitter Sphere and Twitchland for updates and content. Again, sorry my voice is really, really scratchy and sounds like ass, but make sure that you guys can rest well, recharge, and enjoy. Peace of mind.